again, this is the first time I've ever done it this way, where we're dividing the class up. It feels very non-gestalty to me to do humanistic. Now we're going to go into psychoanalytic, and then next week we're going to do a kitty, and then have psychoanalytic. So we'll see how this goes. Be interesting. I'm going to be doing for some of you I have to pre-apologize, an insultingly oversimplistic overview of psychoanalytic thought, which, as you know, is there are people who study it like rabbis. There's tomes of ancient and modern, volumes of work written on all this. So, hey, is anybody here kind of that's more their orientation, psychodynamic, perfect. So feel free to correct or jibe me or like, oh God, that's so but I want at least some concepts that I think are still applicable. And as you well know, it's evolved. I mean, come on, it has evolved over the decades and decades. Basically a century. I mean, Siggy was around, I think 1920 was some of his early writings, publications. I know he and Jung were hanging out in the 1910s or something. It's a century. It's amazing. Okay. And there is still some courses in this school that are specifically psychodynamic, psychoanalytic. Yes? Okay. Very good. Anybody involved in psychodynamic psychotherapy?
No, I'm taking a class right now.
Taking a class. Yeah. Okay, good. So feel free to chime in. But nobody here, anybody in here been in a psychoanalytic model of therapy? Yes. Sort of. Okay. But again, never mind when I first taught this class in, oh my God, 1984. Hello. Again, most of you weren't, in fact, probably all of you weren't born. Within some, maybe, okay, all right, okay. Some of you were born. Let's get that established. Thank you. This school was absolutely beyond dominated by that thought. That was the zeitgeist. That if I asked to, everybody would raise their hands. There might have been one sheepish behaviorist ready to be assaulted and attacked for his reaction formation to the desire to smear feces. And even in the 90s, it's probably 50-50. So it's dramatically, as has the profession dramatically changed in all of this. What's your basic understanding of the and again, it's progressed over time, but the psychodynamic basic theory of the person? Are we good? Are we bad? What's the basic assumption? What drives us? What do we need? What do we want? Why do we do what we do? I love these. You're giggling even.
Because I'm just thinking of sex and aggression. But
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, certainly the original model, oh my God, S&A? Absolutely. That's why you're giggling. And Alice would love the fact that you're giggling about sex and aggression. And yes, they've developed all kinds of things since then, but that is still, in many ways, and certainly the original stuff, S&A, man, that's what makes the world go round and round. And that was what Jung's big battle with Freud, and why Freud kicked Jung out. Because Jung no longer believed that sex and aggression were the primary motives of the human species and the human condition. What else?
Yeah, the stages, which are...
Yeah, well, we'll get into that when we talk about, so what's pathology and what cures and the role of a therapist and what's, like and don't like, so you're right. Object relations theory, right? It bloomed into, I mean, again, it's gone through all kinds. Way back when I was in graduate school, and probably almost all of you weren't born, we read people like Fenichel, you probably never even heard, Guntrip, never mind Koha. I mean, these are iconic figures because they moved psychoanalytic thought into the ego, it's called ego psychology. Harry Stack Sullivan. Anybody here ever even read a page of Harry? Fascinating, brilliant man. Weird language. You think Maimonic states are weird? I mean, this guy's language was so weird, but he was so brilliant in his conceptualization about it. It's really about esteem. And he looked at adolescence in a different way that isn't just a product of your childhood, that there are these stages that in and of themselves can absolutely transform or warp the personality. Very smart people have said very smart things. And then we have the whole object relations field. So, and why do they have to call it object? Because what are the objects talking about? People. But somehow we don't say people relationship, we say object relations. But object relations. That objects, i.e. people, matter. And being, oh my God, connected matters. And you get Margaret Mahler, and you get a bunch of people talking about people who need people. Are the luckiest. Oh God, and this is on, it's going to be on YouTube? Oh my God, I apologize. We should bleep that one out. So we had a whole bunch of movement towards object relations. And then came, oh my God, it even got more humanistic. Co-op, self-psychology, self. Now they got the word object out, now they've got as close as the word self. And self-psychology really is a mixture of Rogers, Rogerian thought, and psychoanalytic concepts melded together by good old Kohut. And there's a wonderful article that compares and contrasts the two in AP Monitor many years ago. But SNA counts for a lot.
Don't forget attachment.
Yeah, well, I'm saying, okay, very good. Well, in all of this, I am meaning attachment theory. And Mahler and all that are attachment people. Thank you for clarifying, though. It's important. Because attachment is connection. And that's really, really important. And the whole attachment movement, if you will, including my impassionment about that, really comes from that and has its root in psychoanalytic. So what's the theory of pathology? By the way, I should also say, their basic assumption about, and especially the old version, of the human spirit is that we are a cauldron of seedy impulses that we have to suppress, push down, displace. Their novel of the human species would be, Lord of the Flies. If you put kids on an island, they're going to end up wanting to eat each other and kill each other. That is not a humanistic novel, nor a humanistic way of viewing the human species. Did I ever mention D4.4? Did I ever mention this? It's the human genome that's involved in releasing dopamine when we do good for others. We're a nice species. We have D4.4. It's in the bioplasm of our being to release dopamine when we do good for others. It's not, again, fear and other things interfere with empathy and kindness and nice acts. Anyway. And remember, the human psyche is a prism. All theories are also right. It's whichever facet, whatever color that's given off from this marvelous prism that attracts you, matters to you. What's the theory of pathology? Why do we have symptoms? Right. And what's involved in that, just so we have common?
Like fantasies, attached reality, there's just different competing.
Right. I mean, conflict is the huge thing. And to use the really old model, we got good old id kid, we got the good old ego, and we've got the super ego, right? I'm going to be really primitive here. And of course, these forces push on poor ego, and it bursts out with these neurotic conflicts. We have fixations, right? And this is where you get into these developmental stages, and you get fixated, either because you were under or over gratified, right? In the oral stage, anal stage, phallic stages. You get fixated. So you have these personality traits based on your fixations, unresolved conflicts. And it puts a lot of pressure on the ego, and you have symptoms. Anybody here you've read Ziggy's interpretation of dreams? Yes, most everybody? I mean, you gotta at least open some pages and read something of that. It's astounding. I swear to God, you feel like, at least I was, you're like in Vienna, in this parlor, It's all wood. And it's got all these beautiful books, all leather bound, and the real leather. You don't see an iPad. And you're sitting in a big leather, maybe it's like a red leather chair. And Siggy's sitting there, and you're sitting there. And you're sharing fine cognac. I don't drink cognac. And God knows I don't smoke cigars. But you feel like you're there, fine cognac, beautiful Cuban cigar. And you're talking about the human condition with a genius. It's amazing. And that's in the translation. Apparently, in the original German, it's even more personable. Wow. So it's cool. It's cool stuff. It's fixated. Another really quick aside. It's really funny. So I get this Porsche. You know, my little Porsche Boxster? I'm going to get a Porsche. Okay. So I thought, you know, I'm going to buy the Porsche book. If I'm going to get a Porsche, I'm going to really know about Porsche. Do you know that? I guess it's Ferdinand, the very original Porsche guy. It was all about racing. He lived in Vienna. And there was this street, Bergerstrasse. Berger means mountain. So Mountain Street. That was really, really good to racing his cars and experimenting on his cars. And who lived at the bottom of Bergerstrasse? With the famous little office there, with the famous couch that you can still visit, and you can send a postcard home to all your psychoanalytic friends. Siggy Freud lived in the bottom of Bergerstrasse at the same time that Fernando, whatever his name was, Porsche was racing the cars. So I always think that somehow he'd hear this, and that somehow that got into the whole theory. So I think Porsche is involved in the deep underlying. It's true. I'm sure it's true. All that power, sex, and aggression. I mean, come on. Tell me that isn't a Porsche. Anyway, a little aside. All right, so you get fixated. You got these neurotic conflicts. You got these battles between id, ego. You got the old superego clanging in here. What heals?
Bringing the unconscious conscious.
Correct, and what was you said?
Resolution of the conflict.
Right, and the way you resolve the conflict is exactly what you said. Making the unconscious conscious. Where there was id, there will be ego. That's his famous phrase. He has a lot of bumper stickers. That's one of them. The dream one is the other. The road to the unconscious is another bumper sticker. So you have these conflicts, you got to resolve them, and you make the unconscious, all these unconscious seedy impulses and desires and things, urges and whatnot, you make them conscious, aware. So id, where there's id, they'll become ego. And how do you do this? Yeah, through a tree of associations, through interpretations, right? The very thing that humanists tend not to do in that sense. It is the fundamental technique. The reason I'm saying all this is because the tape you're going to see, if you're going to keep looking at that tape and keep remembering this model, because you're going to see Rudolf Eckstein, who's a renowned psychoanalyst, do therapy with a latent-age girl, and he really adheres to this model. You can see that. And interpretation is central. That's how you do that. And you interpret through the, what's the T word? Yes, thank you, the transference. That's what you're interpreting, the transference. Because all this seedy impulse stuff is going to come onto your therapist. So from my perspective, in a way, in this model, the role of the therapist is like a lightning rod. You're the rod that kicks in all that energy, all that, right? Unbound, dangerous energies of unconsciousness. And it comes through you, and through your interpretation, you neutralize it, so it doesn't do any harm anymore. So that's my sense. The role of therapist is you're a lightning rod. It's transference. You interpret. The unconscious become conscious, and you become healed. Your symptoms are free to let go. It's like doves flying in the wind. It's probably more a Jungian image, actually, than Freudian. Okay, leaving the things out. Lightning rod. One way to look at the role of therapist is your lightning rod to neutralize all that unconscious id energy. You id it. So am I leaving any really basic thing out? And I put you on the spot, so it makes it harder. But you'll think of it. I'm sure again, you have a whole course and they're going to big stuff, but is there any obvious thing I'm leaving out?
The defense mechanism.
Okay, that comes into play. Actually, I am leaving something out here. Let me remind myself, and actually it's very important. So I'm going to put that in here. Yes, I guess actually part of the pathology is the defense mechanisms in and of themselves. See, to me, it's the perverse protector mechanisms come into play here. And it was actually Anna Freud, his daughter, who really came up with that whole concept, delineate the defense mechanisms. The part that I've left out that's very important, God, I'm blanking on his name, but I'll remember it by next time. Actually, I'm going to send you the article. There's a local psychoanalytic guy. You know there's this local psychoanalytic institute. There's still an enclave of the loyalists. They meet, they congregate. Do you know that Siggy actually, he had his team of like 10 or whatever, and they gave him rings? You know about this? Oh, there's fascinating biographical writings on Siggy and the boys. I think there was a woman or two, but the inner circle, the cabal, were really boys. Wilhelm Reich, of course Jung, and Jung was the heir apparent. He was the key guy. And there was some other very famous. Anyway, and he gave him all rings. They probably had a handshake. It's like the couch. I don't know. And when Jung, all right, I'm making it up, okay? Go with me here. Probably had a dance. Anyway, when Jung left, it was enormously painful for Freud. He had to have the ring back. You can't keep the ring. Give me back. Yeah, he took the ring back. Yeah, I know, very shaming. Jung had to take off the ring. Give it, I'll probably just lay it down. I know, it's drama. I mean, the guy was also snorting some white stuff. It's another story. The cocaine papers, there's some other issues. And he actually fainted sometimes or at least one time when Jung came in the room. He faints. He actually fainted. Yes, I love this look. God, the camera's missing some great looks. I should have a little cam on here that I could just looks. That'd be really good. Anyway, so back to the point. Melissa, I need you. You're supposed to go. Thank you. Back to the point. Okay. You like the cocaine stuff. Enough of your personal life. No. So the local guy, Sherman or something, has pointed out marvelously that the real issue here, and this I totally respect, is an attitude about the self. That the self is worth exploring. That things have more meaning than they simply appear to have. And I totally get that. That's what got me in this field, as I told you. My dear sweet mom, again, who worked with Rogers, would make comments that insinuate there's this reality and then there's all this. It's like, whoa, this is so cool. Who thinks like that there's all this? Psychologists do. I want to think like a psychologist. Well, that's really the fundamental premise, and that is know thyself. Know thyself. And that's very cool. Sugarman. I knew I'd think of it. Thank you, Hippocampus. Alan Sugarman. He's a local guy. Smart man. A believer. And he has and I'll send you the article. And he really says, it's about that attitude. Know thyself. And that's just, I love that. Cool. I'll go with that. So speaking thereof, what do you like? What don't you like? About, or like less hot, not totally hot on, about this theory, this cosmology. It's really more than a theory. It's really a cosmology. I'll tell you right now, I like the know thyself concept. Dictum. Please.
I like the importance of kind of looking back, like the history of the person, because I think it's always important. So even if you're not a psychoanalytic person, I think it's always important to add that key component.
And they are fanatics about history. I think I told you, there's another guy, Paul Keith, I think was his name. Also psychoanalytic, worked with kids. I had him come to class many years ago. And he talked about how the first, at least 4, sometimes 6 to 8 sessions were just with the parents to get the history of the parent, all their stuff, each one of them, and the history of this child, obviously pre-birth. Just to get every detail of kids are thinking about in terms of stages and development, where the fixation patterns going to be, all that. If you're going to make interpretations, for God's sakes, have the data. Makes sense. So it's very, very historical. It's very thorough. Unbelievably thorough. And by the way, note and contrast how different that is from humanistic, which is here now. It's almost ahistorical. The only history that matters is right here, right now, which may involve a past that's being in the present. But really what matters is you and me right here, right now.
HMOs hate that it takes too long.
Oh, God. Just ask Woody Allen. It takes too long. From an HMO point of view, oh my God. Talking about dear Paul Keith's, the case he brought, he had seen her 4 times a week. 4 times a week for 2 years. And clearly the termination was premature. That's what he said. 4 times a week, 2 years, 4 times a week, and the termination obviously was way premature. Yeah, pass that by an HMO. On the one hand, on the other hand. On the one hand, yea, for they have a respect for the relationship and for the complexities of the soul. Well, they wouldn't call it that. I mean, they really respect that it takes a relationship. And when I said one of the factors it takes, for a relationship with children to be significant is time, well, they got that one down. And I also called it availability, a way of being, particularly with kids, including texting them happy birthday if they're teenagers. And a bunch of other things. But they have a tremendous respect for the relationship, and it takes time to do this, that the psyche is complex, multi-layered, and you're going to come back tomorrow, and the next day, and the next day, and the next day, and I'm going to be here, and we're going to be together in this process, in this endeavor, in this unfolding. Wow. So on the other hand, on one hand, that's cool. But on the other hand, holy shit, never mind whether insurance will pay. But a little pumpkin 4 times a week, she's got to have a life out there. Whether it's ballet and soccer and all that other stuff they do. It seems to me perhaps maybe some would say. Make sure I'm doing okay on time. Yeah, okay. So that's a lot. But they have a deep respect for the relationship.
I was going to say, again, like the neurobio component of being kind of a drawback, like dealing with someone who's actively psychotic, to be able to understand the interpretations.
Like most everything else, it doesn't work on everyone. What I think you just said they have to have a strong ego. Is that what you said? Yeah, you're going to be able to filter it in. Now, as you remember, I said last time, right? There's a guy named, who did the John Rosen, who did what he called direct psychoanalytic work with floridly psychotic people. He was the guy who would sit on the bed just before Thorazine and whatnot, and the temperature would rise, and he'd make these crazy interpretations. Very classic primary process. You want to fuck your mom, kill your dad. I should say you want to beat your mom, and I guess you say kill your dad. And he'd say that, and somehow, supposedly, these people would get better. I will say, I used to love, when I was an intern, postdoc intern, I worked at CMH, County Mental Health, inpatient, adolescent unit. And I loved, because again, I was fresh from Michigan State, but the whole Jungian thing and the whole St. George thing was really crazy people. I loved being in rubber rooms with floridly psychotic teenagers, pre-medication. Mark Chemman used to run the place. I would say, Mark, do you have an unmedicated psychotic for me? Yes, great. And I would go in, and I would do this kind of Jungian-based interpretations. I remember I walk in the room, and the guy's in the bed going, music or magic, music or magic, music or magic, music or magic. Just back and forth. I walk in. I'm like, oh, God, he's not medicated. Oh, I'm having lunch. So I'm eating a bagel. Do you want part of my bagel? Looks at me. Music or magic? I said, I think music is magic. And what did he say? He said something about John Lennon, who had been assassinated. So I say, and this is classic, that kind of stuff. John Lennon was assassinated. I will not chop off your penis. I know, wait, you gotta think like, whoa. And he said, how did you know I was worried about that? I said, everybody worries about that. Now, if nothing else, there were those who, I swear to God, I wish I had a transcript of that. It was pretty amazing, the dialogue that happened between us. I did, if nothing else, caught his interest. Oh, then he said something about Queen Thena. Queen Thena said, yeah, Queen Thena doesn't have a penis. We just did that whole stuff. If nothing else, it's like, well, this is interesting. This guy's nuttier than I am. I will never forget our last session. I became his therapist. He got medicated. He got less primary processy, let's see. He loved music. We talked music. At our very last session, in the office, he's facing the window. And he says to me, there is a black bird on the wire. And I was like, whoa. I'm thinking Leonard Cohen, I'm thinking Blackbird, Dark Death, all kinds of things are going through. And he could tell it by my look. Like, he says, Doc, there's a black bird right over there on the wire. I looked and went, oh, okay. I said, that's exactly the point. You can make a choice. You can go into there's a black bird on the wire. Death might strike at any moment. Or you can go, there's a black bird on the wire. Like I was saying. And we can make choices with some psychotic folk. They got to make that choice. What was that? Oh, that was a wonderful movie. Oh, yeah, there's that. But there's the other one. He was about an actual schizophrenic, brilliant guy, and he was paranoid. Beautiful Mind. And he got the point where he just says, voices, go away. Sorry, not talking to you now. One more over here, and then I'll come, because I'm realizing I'm going over here, but I'll give you one more, because this was also interesting. So this guy's, I think psychotic, but we're not sure. He's in jail. He's not in mental health. And I have to assess him. And I'm trying to give him a Rorschach, as a matter of fact. So I'm sitting there, there, and of course there's a one-way mirror thing, and it gives me one. And I'm trying to give him the Rorschach thing, and I see he keeps looking over. So who are you looking at? Isma. I said, oh, who's Isma? My giant chicken. I said, okay, how big is he? Oh, no, actually I didn't say. I said, your giant chicken, he's right here. Yeah, okay. What's he saying? He's saying, don't answer his questions. I said, Isma, and against a blank chair. Isma, dude, I got to get through this, okay? I need your help, okay? I want you to know something. Isma, get up. Is he getting up? Yeah, okay. Is he this tall or this tall? Or is he this tall? How tall is he? It's up to your shoulder. Okay. Why did I say that? You got to remember John Rosen. You got to remember Frieda von Reichmann. These people that say, you go back to your demons and you let them know, I am more powerful than them, and they will no longer hurt you. So I'm not saying, is it this tall? I'm not giving him that option. Remember Create Realities? I'm saying, is it this tall, this tall, this tall? You choose. How tall is he? You let me know. It's up to your shoulder. Pick the middle. Perfect. I'm bigger than him. Isma, I'm bigger than you. Go, sit, please, thank you. I tell you what, you know what? I want his Rorschach. Forget yours. I'm not interested in yours. I want his. But you be his voice, because I can't hear him. You can't. What's he saying? That's how I gave him the Rorschach. Through Isma. Good enough for me. You got to go for the flow with these people. Okay, so there are even, I guess the point is, thank you, that there are even psychoanalytic folk who will do this kind of work. But in general, I'm not convinced that that's going to heal them. If it does, perhaps maybe a relationship, but there is neurobiology, and thank God for meds. It's true. Okay. What else you like or don't like?
I'm not sure where to put this one.
Yeah, you could say both. It's not an either or.
The research aspect of it, because I know before, if you compare it to CBT, supposedly there's a lot of empirical research for CBT, but a limited amount on psychoanalytic. But then I recently read an article where there is a lot on psychoanalytic, so
Correct.
I'm confused as to where I should go.
Correct. No, that's really because they've gotten on they have to get on the bandwagon. I mean, if you're going to do empirically based, evidence-based treatment, EBTs, right? Well, they got to get on that bandwagon. They'll say, hey, it does work in all these ways. And they love Alan Shore. Alan Shore is one brilliant, kind of psychoanalytically neuropsychologist. And he's written volumes. It's in your appendix. Alan Shore's volumes of neuropsych on the self. And they love him because, from their point of view, Alan Shore is giving them the neuro basis for psychoanalytic thought. Remember, Ziggy was an MD. He really wanted to come up with medical kind of model of the human psyche in that kind of medical way of drives and all these things, and he wanted the neuro aspect. We just didn't have fMRIs and all that. There was no, I don't call it the unconscious, I call it the non-conscious. Because we're conscious of it in a non-verbal way. It's the unthought known. We can't put it in verbal ways, but there's a whole bunch of other experiencings. So I tend to call it the non-conscious, not the unconscious. But it's there. He's really dealing with the orbital frontal lobe. Absolutely right. And as you know from, remember the chicken in the snow mound, right? The snow mound determines how you interpret reality. The limbic will define and defy the logic. And that's really what they're saying. And until you get to that limbic area, that orbital frontal area, there's other areas, and change those schemas, you're not going to make significant changes. Perhaps, maybe. Fair enough. And it is, of course, a very relationally based model. It's not a skill acquisition model. They don't care about skill acquisition. It's almost the polar opposite in that sense of CBTs and whatnot. It's all about the relationship. It's also, as I told you, I was in psychoanalytic. I was actually in psychoanalysis. I did it 3 times. Actually, at one point it was 4 times a week. We cut back to 3 times a week. Of course, controlling me, I negotiated to 30 minutes, partly because of money and whatnot. Of course, he interpreted that as control issues and intimacy, fear issues. I will say this. You know, I've been in a lot of different kinds of therapies and Jung and all that. When I hadn't been in psychoanalytic, I thought, you know, I'll do this. I wasn't symptomatic or anything. Nothing wrong with those kinds of stuff. I don't mean to offend anybody. But I didn't have any obvious symptoms or anything like that. I was in a relationship, etc. I thought, I'll explore mine. The only thing, and again, this is many, many years ago, a different era. I knew at some point, as a male therapist, I guess I'm going to have some homosexual fantasy or something. And I'm sorry, in those days, I wasn't comfortable with that for myself. Sorry. Well, lo and behold, this is so great. I don't know how many, I did this for about 2 years, 3 years, somewhere past a year. I have a dream where I'm making out with this girl named Stephanie. Stephanie and I are making out. That's all we're doing, but all right. So I come in, I do the lie down thing, and I tell him about this dream with Stephanie. It's the weirdest thing, and we're making out, blah, blah. And of course, you know, it's really strange. The psychoanalytic thing, they really do sit to the side of you. It really is silent. And it's the weirdest thing. I will tell you, it is really weird to lie down on the couch. And so he's silent, and all of a sudden they write down something one way. So he's writing down. He says, do you know anybody named Stephanie? And I go, no, I don't know any Stephanie, and blah, blah. And then he says, well, you know, my first name is Stephen, spelled with a PH. Going into an existential homophobic panic for a moment. We just kissed, that's all. I couldn't look at him as I left. It's okay. It's all okay. First time I got on the couch, my first image was taking off on a big wave. It went and but at least I made it to the bottom and made the turn. And he wrote that down. I thought that was a good sign. Whew. And I told you how we ended. I thought that was a good sign. The good news about the YouTube thing, it even catches the whisperings. The good thing about the YouTube is it even captures the whisperings. Yeah, I do for that part. Don't pay through it. I knew it was a good sign that I made it to the bottom of the wave and didn't crash. And I saw you read it. We ended because, and this is a problem for me here in the not so hot column. He gave an interpretation to one of my dreams. I thought it was very negative. I thought, you know, there's other ways to look at it. I could see that, but I'm thinking it could be that. He said, no, it's the other. You're being defensive. I said, well, you know, not everything is a defense. And that is the bind in this. Thou protest too much. Because if you start saying, no, it really is that. Oh, no, you're being defensive. Well, no, I'm not. Oh, I guess we'll have to work on this at another time. And I said, that was disrespectful. That's being disrespectful to me. He says, well, are you going to tell me how to talk to you? I said, well, no, but I'm thinking what would be more helpful if you could have said to me, you know, on the one hand, but, you know, I could be wrong on the right? I could be wrong. On the other hand, blah, blah, blah. He goes, it sounds like you are telling me how to talk to you. I said, now you and I are having a problem. Now you and I have a problem. And this isn't transference. This isn't about some problem I had with my dad, some problem I had with my mom. I mean, I'll cop to that and that. This is between me and you, Stephen with a PH. This is a problem between you and I. And we're going to need to work this out if we're going to keep working together. He started yelling at me. Oh my God. He started, don't you And I swear to God, I got up and said, it's all over now, baby blue. He doesn't even have blue eyes. That's it. That was it. I said, we're done. I will not be in a relationship where I am yelled at for speaking my truth. I will not be in this relationship. So I will come 3 more times. Yes, I'm being controlling. I'm going to tell you I will come 3 more times, and then we're done. He apologized the next time I came in. I'm sorry. Said it was my kind of transference. I'm going to go. I had a consultation, blah, blah, blah. I said, I really appreciate that. I'm done. Sorry, whatever, I'm done. And then it's got a little, he says, I'm really going to miss you. And then got a little creepy, maybe too much of the Stephanie stuff. I don't know. It was like, God, it's like I'm really going to miss you. I care about you. So that's nice. I'm getting creeped out. That's my issue, not yours. And I did stop. There is, you know,
that you decided to come 3 more times after that. Why was that instead of just being like, it's done?
because I knew, I mean, come on, I got to have some respect for this relationship of now how many years, 2 or 3 years, 3 to 4 times a week. And you got to work this out. I mean, I'm full of a lot of feeling. I don't want to, again, I want my limbic to defy my logic. I want some I didn't use those kinds of terms in those days. I want the prefrontal cortex. I want to explore this, but I'm ending, and I did. And I've seen him. I don't have any heart being. I've seen him since. But you know the myth of the I never can pronounce this right. Protrustian bed. So there's, I think it's Protrustian. It's one of those myth things, fairy stories. Basically, there's this inn and there's a bed in it. And the bed, you have to fit the bed rather than the bed fitting you. So if you're too tall, they chop off your legs to fit it. If you're too short, they stretch you out. It's a myth. Come on, it's a fairy tale. I love your expression. Camera close up on the horrified look. Oh my God. Hey, come on, we're doing the primary process. It's, that grim tales. Well, in some senses, seems to me perhaps maybe in some ways, I could be wrong, psychoanalytic thought has a bit of a propensity to do the Protrustian bed, where they fit the formula. This is the formula. And if you say it's different, then you're in defense and in denial and all that other stuff. They have a hard time saying I could be wrong. I have seen for many years, and I don't anymore, a wonderful psychoanalyst by the name of John Hassler. He's a very pragmatic psychoanalyst. He's very pro-families and all that stuff. So I go once a month, we'll check in, blah, blah, blah. And it's true that it always, no matter what I said, came around to mom and or dad. And he really did believe in the castration stuff and the Oedipal stuff, all that stuff, which might also be true. But it will always come, and no matter what, I said, John, I appreciate that, but it doesn't, that doesn't resonate with me at this time. It does sometimes, like, wow, I hadn't thought of that, but it's like, huh? I see how you get there, but I don't get it. And I don't think it's a defense, but I could be wrong. So there seems to me that might be a liability, and you see that. Anything else in the positive or negatives? Yeah? No? I think we've covered, we're obviously not going to have time for the tape today, but that's okay. I'm feeling like there's something else I want to say. They'll come to me and they'll always be mañana. I have a lot of respect for, I know one thing I do want to say. I mean, let's be clear. Let's be clear. Vienna, 1890s, early 1900s. I think I might have said this before. If we had this piece of furniture in our house, or study or wherever, we'd have those, I don't know if you call them doilies, I'm not sure what you call them. These little things that would cover this part, and you would not call this a leg. It's an appendage. And they would cover the appendages of the chairs. A little bit of a repressive society, you think? And in that climate, this guy named Sigmund Freud comes up and says, you want to your mother and kill your dad? And you can't even call this legs? Oh my God, are you brave and heroic? And that he wasn't immediately hospitalized, never mind jailed for obscenities and pornography, is astounding. And a true testament, never mind his courage, but his brilliance. You gotta remember the climate. Oh my God, that he was saying that stuff and convincing people. And that is heroic. He was a very, very brave and genius man. So I will say that. Silence. Your silence is meaningful, I'm sure. Go enjoy your week, interpretive or otherwise, for your dreams, depth and otherwise. So next week, so come at 8:30 next week. We're going to have A Marvelous Young Lad, and then we will watch the video.